making them change that Jam 3.
Y'all like the way we go, right there, right there. Never disrespect the lineage, I swear. We can really be a worst nightmare. Say our name, say our name, say our name, and we're right there, right there. Right there, right there, right there, right there, right there, right there. Y'all like the way we glow, right there, right there. Never disrespect the lineage, I swear we can really be a worst nightmare. Say our name, say our name, say our name, and we're right there. Right there, right there, right there, right there.
The way you just commented that at the
Really be a worst nightmare. Say our name. Now we disrespect the lineage, I swear we can really be a worst nightmare. Say our name, say our name, say our name, and we're right there, 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 right there. Y'all like the way we glow, right there. Never disrespect the lineage, I swear. We can really be a worst nightmare. Say our name, say our name, say our name, we're right there, right there, right there. Y'all like the way we glow, right there. Never disrespect the lineage, I swear. We can really be a worst nightmare. Say our name, say our name, say our name, we're right there, right there, right there. Y'all like the way we glow, right there. Never disrespect the lineage, I swear. We can really be a worst nightmare. Say our name, say our name, say our name, we're right there, right there, right there.
B part,
campuses and universities. And once they're swept into the system, they're branded and trapped in a permanent second-class status, not unlike the one that we supposedly left behind. Once you're branded a criminal or a felon, all the old forms of discrimination, denial of the right to vote, exclusion from jury service, legal discrimination in employment, housing, access to education, public benefits, are suddenly legal. You know, as a criminal, you have scarcely more rights and arguably less respect than a black man living in Alabama or Mississippi at the height of Jim Crow.
If there's one drug, it seems to me, that illustrates how skewed the enforcement has been, it's marijuana. There was one study conducted by the Drug Policy Alliance in California, and it showed that in that state's 25 largest cities, arrest rates for blacks for possessing marijuana were 4 to 12 times higher than it is for whites.
Yes.
Yet, you know, last November, we had an election in California, and one of the ballot measures was to, in essence, legalize the recreational use of marijuana. And only 47% of black voters voted for it. What do you make of that?
Well, you know, I think it's complicated. You know, African Americans have no doubt been the primary target of the drug war and have suffered the most as a result of the war on drugs. But many people in the Black community are also very concerned about the harms associated with illegal drugs, and they see the harms associated with illegal drug activity. And legalizing drugs makes people nervous. It makes people worry that there's a message being sent to their youngsters who are already struggling just to make it, that it's okay to use drugs.
Were you surprised by the results of that election?
No, actually I wasn't. I mean, I thought that it was, I was hopeful.
Suspected of a drug offense, law enforcement has the right to seize your property and keep it, 80% of it, for itself, for its own budget, thus granting to law enforcement a direct monetary interest, not in ending drug abuse or drug addiction or ever winning this war, but instead law enforcement has a direct monetary interest in the longevity of this war. And the results have been predictable. Overwhelming majority of people swept into the system for drug offenses have been arrested for relatively minor, nonviolent drug offenses. In 2005, for example, 4 out of 5 drug arrests, simple possession. Only 1 out of 5 for sales. Most people in state prison for drug offenses have no history of violence or any significant selling activity. And in the 1990s, the Clinton years, the period of the greatest escalation of the drug war, nearly 80% of the increase in drug arrests were for marijuana possession, a drug that has been shown now to be less harmful, less addictive than alcohol or tobacco, but at least, if not more prevalent, in middle-class white communities and on college campuses as it is in the hood. But by waging this drug war almost exclusively in the hood, we've created this vast new racial undercast in an astonishingly short period of time. Now, many people have said to me, well, if that's the case, if that's all true, then why aren't you filing more class action lawsuits? Why not take this to the Supreme Court and bring an end to it all? What people don't realize is that the U.S. Supreme Court has closed the courthouse doors to claims of racial bias at every stage of the criminal justice process, from stops and searches to plea bargaining and sentencing. The cases that I was bringing 10 or 15 years ago can't even be filed today. The U.S. Supreme Court, in a series of cases, beginning with McCleskey versus Kemp and Armstrong versus the United States, has ruled explicitly that it doesn't matter how overwhelming the statistical evidence might be, it doesn't matter how severe the racial disparities are, unless you can provide proof of conscious, intentional bias, tantamount to an admission by a law enforcement official of racial bias, you can't even state a claim for racial bias in the criminal justice system today.
Your weed family is subtly, partially feminizing you. We have documented. See how quiet it is? See how quiet it is? What? You want to get up and walk out on me like the LGBT walked out on the Honorable Mention Louis Farrakhan in Long Beach? That's what you want to do? Okay. Okay. Well, if you don't now, I'm going to work hard to make you. We have documented that the enhanced weed, now look, in this confession, marijuana is identified by the conspirators as an anti-androgen drug that assaults, that blocks the development of masculinity. We have documented that The weed that hit the streets in the late 60s came through CIA laboratories and passed first through the hands of CIA assets before you were ever able to light it up yourself. We have also documented that not only does this now popular government touch weed with its increased THC content, not only does it diminish executive cognitive function, yeah, bruh, you pretty functional when you lift it. That is true. You can go to work, and if the job ain't too complex, you can do a reasonably good job at it. We don't mess with nigga stuff. Weed, the THC, diminishes what they call executive cognitive function, that higher level thinking, that black God thinking. We have documented that not only does it poison your sperm, and I'm gonna mention why it's quiet over there. We have documented that not only does it poison your sperm, but it also mildly feminizes you. We're going to look at some of the manifestations of the mild feminization, but we also documented that since 1975, the U.S. government has made imported and domestically grown marijuana effectively an ethnic weapon against black people by contaminating much, if not most, if not all, of weed plants with a dangerous pesticide called paraquat. Paraquat has what's called a melanin affinity. That means the toxic chemical binds to melanated tissue, and it attaches and stays in melanated bodies for life, releasing poisons into the body. Weed has been weaponized, ethnically weaponized against black people. Yet, weed smoking is the religion of black folks 45 and under, including those of us in here. Weed is the religion of black folks 45 and under. Yeah, it is. The level of, y'all should see the faces I'm looking at over there. Can you get them? In the name of Allah, who came in the person of Master Fard.
And you think they're using the drugs to feminize men? Or?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because
you also say masculize the women too. So you
absolutely. Absolutely. Marijuana, this enhanced marijuana, feminizes the black man and masculinizes the black woman. Because the THC, it does so many things. The high potency THC from the plant itself, from the weed itself, it lowers the testosterone. Understand what that means. We have a wrong conception, DJ Envy, of testosterone. Testosterone ain't a libido. It's a libido, it ain't a sex hormone. Testosterone is testosterone with another biochemical, serotonin. These two are the biochemical basis of a man's drive for power. High THC is the signature of dominant men. Not high THC. High testosterone is the signature and prerequisite for a man's drive for power. And be clear, masculinity is not about a man's sex drive. Masculinity is about a man's power drive. testosterone is a biochemical source of a man's drive for power, it also is testosterone. It's the chemical scalpel that literally sculpts the masculinity of the male fetus, the body, and the brain. You lower testosterone, the body will, in the fetus, it will default to a feminized form. You lower the testosterone in a gestating male fetus, his body will default to a feminine form. So the THC lowers testosterone, but when you smoke it, an additive happens, and this is what's relevant to sisters. The THC lowers testosterone, therefore in many ways feminizing males. But when you light that joint, the smoke produces particular chemicals, specifically a set of chemicals called phenols. Phenols are estrogen chemicals. Estrogen, the female hormone, is bad for men and it's bad for women. Now, all men have a natural amount of the female hormone estrogen, just like all women have a natural amount of the male hormone testosterone, but they're in perfect balance. When you expose males to excess estrogen, that feminizes males. When you expose females to excess estrogen, it masculinizes females. And so the weed, the joint itself, the plant, the cannabis in there with this THC, it's lowering our testosterone, but the smoke produced from the fire has these chemicals that are estrogens in the body. So that estrogen is adding feminization to the male, but it's masculinizing the female.
The Food and Drug Administration is proposing a ban on menthol cigarettes to go along with its proposed restriction on flavored e-cigarettes. It could be years before the proposal takes effect, but it's a move that health advocates have been pushing for years. FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb explained this decision to our chief medical correspondent, Dr. John LaPook.
Menthol is one of the primary vehicles by which kids are initiating on tobacco. If you look at the data of kids who are smoking combustible cigarettes, fully 54% of kids between the age of 12 and 17 are using mentholated cigarettes. And if you look at, for African American teens, it's 7 out of 10. So we know menthol is one of the primary vehicles that's getting kids hooked on tobacco, in large part because the menthol flavor, the mentholated cigarette itself, masks some of the undesirable features of smoking. So the burning sensation and the coughing that comes with using a cigarette for the first time, if you're using a cigarette that has menthol in it, that masks some of those effects, so it makes it easier for kids to initiate on tobacco.
Dr. John LaPook joins me now. So Dr. LaPook, he spoke a little bit about menthol, but I'm just curious, why of all the flavors menthol?
Yeah, and because it seems to decrease the burning, the side effects, it makes it a little easier to take. And so, you're hearing that 54% of kids use it, about a third of adults, and 70% of African American kids. So it was interesting. I said to him,
70% of Black Americans, wow.
We reached out today to cigarette companies and asked them about this, and they said, well, look, the science does not support a ban of menthol. So I said, what do you think about that, Dr. Gottlieb? And he said, well, why should it be in cigarettes? He flipped it on its ear. He said, well, the science doesn't support it being added to it. And I mean, I think the thought is that the reason why it's there is to make it easier to take. And if it's easier to take, then it's easier to get hooked.
So let's say these cigarette companies don't comply. What happens then?
Yeah, well, so two different things happen, right? So the menthol rule about banning that's going to go through regulatory process. It's going to take a year or two, and that's sort of like a question mark how long that will take. But the e-cigarette, the fruity flavored e-cigarette use, which they're going to have restrictions on, they're going to say it has to be, if it's in a retail store, it has to be in an area, not just a curtain, but an area where you physically can't get it. Maybe like another room or an adjacent area. It's hard to know how that's going to work. Or it could be in a place that's just an adult smoking area only. He said they are going to send undercover agents in. You know, they already had this sting operation a few months ago, and now they're saying that we're gonna look at this very soon. I said, what do you mean by soon? He said, a couple of months. And if they see that there's not a significant drop in usage, they're going to go after further regulation.
Wow. Why do you think now there's such a focus on these e-cigarettes? When you talk about epidemics, I mean, we talk about opioids. Like, why put all this attention on this?
Rena, in the last year, in 1 year, the use of e-cigarettes in high schoolers went up 78%. You're not smoking, are you?
No. Smoking.
No. Wait.
Excuse me.
I know, that's what live TV is all about. No, I know. It went up 78% in high schoolers, and it went up 48% in middle schoolers. So that's an unbelievable leap.
That is huge.
And they're saying, wow, like where does it end? So you have so many people using it.
I'm getting all choked up over this story. Maybe I asked the wrong question here. But you know, you were saying about why the focus on e-cigarettes, but you know, this doesn't really affect those flavors of vaping liquids that they talk about, does it?
Well, for right now, they're not using. This is so tricky how they. And I wonder whether people are going to sort of go whoo when they go. But they're saying that, for example, menthol. They're not going to apply this to menthol, and the reason is they don't want an adult who is trying to stop smoking and would go in and just get an e-cigarette with menthol to have to be restricted in how they get it. I mean, it's a really interesting thing that's happening at this one time, and I think if people take away anything from this, it should be this idea. Right now, cigarette use is going down and down and down in teenagers, and that's just such great news, right? The question is, are we mortgaging our future? Are we taking a short-term gain? Because these kids are now switching over to using e-cigarettes. They're getting hooked on nicotine, and does that mean later, in their 20s and their 30s, they're going to start smoking? And we know that the more use that you have with e-cigarettes, the higher the odds that you're going to smoke cigarettes in the future.
Dr. John Lapook, thank you very much for joining us with this.
If you've taken a menthol cough drop, you probably noticed a minty flavor and a cool numbing sensation in the back of your throat. That feeling is similar to the one you get from smoking these, menthol cigarettes, and it's part of why the Biden administration is trying to prevent them from being sold.
Health officials say that menthol cigarettes are more appealing to young people because the menthol eases the throat irritation that you experience when you first try a cigarette.
Aside from regular tobacco, menthols are currently the only flavor of cigarette allowed on the market. And they're popular. 43% of smokers in the
One second, family. Let it load back up. Hey, yo, please, peace. Alexis Berry, $2 super chat. I appreciate that. Okay. Hope y'all family went live later than what I expected. But you know what it is. All right. Now the video is not playing. All right, so let's see what's going on here. First live where the video doesn't play. All right. So hold on now. First live where the video shuts down. All right. Let's see if I get it somewhere else. Oh shit. I got it's gonna be on my it will come on my account that's not premium. All right.
If you leaders.
Hold on.
Menthol,
Go back. Here we go.
Aside from regular tobacco, menthols are currently the only flavor of cigarette allowed on the market. And they're popular. 43% of smokers in the US used menthols in 2020. Here's why the FDA wants to ban them from being sold and distributed in the US, and why the move is being opposed by some Black community leaders. Menthol, a compound that occurs naturally in mint plants, triggers the same receptors we use to sense cold, which creates that numb, chilling sensation. Menthol brands like Newport, the most popular menthol in the US, emphasize the flavor in their older marketing.
Smoother Newport, fresher Newport, smoother. More refreshing cigarette.
But the FDA says that in addition to reducing the harshness of smoking, menthol also makes it harder to quit.
Menthol interacts with nicotine in the brain to enhance nicotine's addictive effects, according to the FDA, making menthol cigarettes even more addictive than regular cigarettes.
Way more addictive, and they are targeting the cigarette ads. We're gonna get to it. The cigarette ads targeted the Black community with these menthol cigarettes that are way more addictive than your normal or non-menthol cigarettes. All right, just keep that in mind.
So they start kids younger and then they keep them hooked for a lifetime. US
Right, it's harder to drop the habit as opposed to non-menthol cigarettes. And don't forget, menthol cigarettes, the menthol masks the side effects, the coughing, the burning in your throat that would normally discourage a kid from trying to smoke again, right? The first experience would be horrible. And they're like, nah, I'm good. This ain't for me. It masks those symptoms, okay? Those side effects. So their first experience ain't going to be bad. Now, if they spoke to non-menthol cigarettes, they're going to get all those side effects and most likely be discouraged to try again. You know, these rebellious, badass kids. But the menthol cigarettes, they mask those side effects that discourage kids, and they look at, hey, this ain't so bad. And they're, unbeknownst to them, they're smoking the most addictive version of a cigarette, which is menthol.
Will say.
The biggest U.S. tobacco companies have rejected the FDA's findings.
They say that menthol cigarettes don't have any different health effect than a regular cigarette.
Despite this, the FDA got White House support to move forward on the ban last year as part of the Biden administration's Cancer Moonshot initiative, which aims to reduce the cancer death rate by at least 50% over the next 25 years.
The rules announced today would enforce regulations related to what stores sell and what companies manufacture and distribute.
A recent study projected that a ban on menthol cigarettes would prompt an estimated 1.3 million U.S. smokers to quit. The FDA says that menthol smoking disproportionately impacts youth and young adults. In 2019, researchers estimated that more than 1 million U.S. middle and high school students had smoked a cigarette in the last month. Of those, about 47% reported smoking a menthol. The flavor is also popular among Black smokers.
For decades, cigarette companies have marketed menthol brands like Newport, Cool, and Salem to Black people, distributing free packs in Black neighborhoods and running magazine and billboard ads depicting carefree Black smokers.
Black smokers are more likely to use menthols. They also die at higher rates of smoking-related cancers than other groups.
Black users, run that back, and we died at large rate. Look at this. Menthol cigarettes, the worst cigarettes to use. So you're going to see a pattern here, family. If you ain't see this pattern before, you're going to see it now. And just open your eyes. Normally, when we do something, is usually the worst version of its kind. And it's not that we chose the worst version. You'll see that we're being targeted to use the worst version of its kind.
In billboard ads depicting carefree.
Look. It's all look, Newport. But they're showing you that they were targeting Black folks. They were having Black people on the posters or the billboards of the menthol cigarettes. They're trying to get us to relate to menthol and not non-menthol. See, look, all Black images, family. This is all real. This is real.
Cigarette companies have marketed menthol brands like Newport, Cool, and Salem to Black people.
To Black people. You see that? They market to Black. They market the most addictive cigarette version of cigarettes to the Black community. This is a fact. This is a fact. All right. So look, when they say, "Hey, man, the white man pull you over," no, they know who we are, and it's a desperate attempt to keep us down. They did. So you're looking at it. This is no conspiracy theory. This is facts.
Free packs in Black neighborhoods and running magazine and billboard ads depicting carefree Black smokers.
Black smokers are more likely to use menthols. They also die at higher rates of smoking-related cancers than other groups, according to the CDC. And U.S. health officials say the ban would help address those disparities.
Right. And now you got people who are so selfish. You got black people who are so selfish because they have their addiction to menthol cigarettes that they're actually mad at the ban that will potentially save lives, black lives. Right? They'll save black lives. Don't black lives matter? So people who are selfish, who have this habit they can't kick, is mad at the ban and will actually boycott or protest the ban because of their selfish addiction. Crazy. So that's a fact, though.
NAACP has been in support of the ban, saying that the targeting and marketing of menthol flavoring by the tobacco industry have had a devastating impact on our community. But others think the ban could present problems. Reynolds American, which makes Newport, has given money to prominent Black community leaders who have opposed the ban, like Reverend Al Sharpton and civil rights attorney Ben Crump. Crump says he's accepted money from Reynolds for things like scholarships for Black youth, but the money has not influenced his opinion. Sharpton.
Benjamin Crump and Al Sharpton paid to oppose the cigarette ban. So you got two black people, or on the surface, black people who supposedly are in the best interest of black people, taking shut up money to not oppose the ban of cigarettes, menthol cigarettes, that is caught targeting black communities. Hush money. It's crazy. You can't make this up, family, but the receipts are here. You're hearing the receipts. One more time.
And civil rights think the ban could present have had a devastating impact on our community. But others think the ban could present problems. Reynolds American, which makes Newport, has given money to prominent Black community leaders who have opposed the ban, like Reverend Al Sharpton and civil rights attorney Ben Crump. Crump says he's accepted money from Reynolds for things like scholarships for Black youth, but the money has not influenced his opinion. Sharpton did not reply to request for comment. They and groups like the ACLU and members of the Congressional Black Caucus have expressed concerns that the ban will disproportionately impact people of color.
They have argued that menthol bans would lead to racial profiling by police and expand the illicit market for cigarettes.
In a statement to the Wall Street Journal, Reynolds said, "It's important to note that we do not make contributions conditional upon organizations maintaining a particular position." The Biden administration has said that enforcement of a ban would target manufacturers and sellers.
This is not about going after individuals smoking menthol cigarettes. This is about manufacturers and people who are selling them.
Tobacco companies could lose significant profits if the ban is enforced.
So pretty much keep cigarettes and keep killing black folks. What are we talking about here?
Already have been grappling with declining smoking rates in the U.S., and they are racing to develop and market alternative products like e-cigarettes, nicotine pouches, lozenges, and other alternatives in the hopes that smokers will switch over to those.
Even as smoking declines, menthols remain a huge part of the cigarette market. They account for about a third of all cigarettes sold in the U.S. British American Tobacco, which makes Reynolds American, and Altria, which makes Marlboro, are the top menthol makers in the U.S. Menthol makes up roughly 30% of British American Tobacco's global profits. Altria said in a statement that it believes harm reduction, not prohibition, is the better path forward. Reynolds and Altria have hinted that they may sue if the ban goes into effect.
Litigation could tie this up for years. So even if the FDA...
Yeah, don't that sound like the slave masters who were forced to free their quote unquote slaves? They sued because their quote unquote slaves were freed. So tobacco companies that were caught targeting black communities with the worst type of cigarette known to mankind will sue if corrections were made. You can't make this up.
They moved forward and set an effective date of, let's say 2024. Once that ban were implemented, then the cigarette companies would likely sue and hold it up further.
The FDA will hear public comments on its proposed rules and will take time to review before finalizing the ban.
Let's keep it going.
Menthol makes the poison go down a lot easier.
For anti-tobacco advocates, the minty flavor of menthol cigarettes makes them a gateway into smoking.
If you have a product that kills your customers, you have to get some new ones if you want to stay in business.
The FDA's expected plan to ban menthol in cigarettes would be a victory for advocates who note the tobacco industry has targeted.
Look at this. They were handing them out for free, knowing how highly addicted they are. And look at these coons, these docs, smiling, taking a drug that make them slaves to it.
The black community with menthols for decades.
It's making menthols cheaper in black communities, more price discounts in black communities, strategic partnerships with black-led organizations, the Cool Jazz Festival, really a variety of ways to really focus on transforming menthol into a black cigarette.
The CDC notes it's been a successful effort, particularly among younger people. It says more than 7 out of 10 African American kids between 12 and 17 who smoke use menthols.
7 out of 10 black kids who smoke between the ages of 12 to 17 smoke menthol, the most highly addicted cigarettes on the planet.
Advocates say a menthol ban has been a long time coming. When President Barack Obama signed the Tobacco Control Act into law in 2009, it banned flavors like strawberry and vanilla from cigarettes to make them less attractive to kids. But
so you can't say Obama ain't do nothing for the black community. He banned other highly addictive flavors that would have got more black kids smoking cigarettes. So you got to put a little respect on Obama's name. You dig?
Out menthol. A citizen petition filed in 2013 called for a ban, and FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb in 2018 also sought to enact one, unsuccessfully.
Once we touched menthol, once we sought to try to ban menthol in cigarettes, that's when a lot of the opposition that we faced really started to get whipped up, particularly at the White House.
Now, any potential ban is still expected to take 20 years to implement. The tobacco companies tell us a menthol ban would have unintended consequences, including a, quote, disproportionate impact on disadvantaged populations. But advocates say menthol cigarettes themselves have had that disproportionate impact. Shep?
Meg Terrell, thank you. Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC
Let's keep it going.
on YouTube.
It's the most popular cigarette flavoring by far, menthol. It masks the taste of tobacco, providing what Camels calls a cool burst.
You know, they taste better. It makes me feel better.
And while smoking is on the decline, the rate of menthol use is inching up from 31% of all smokers in 2004 to 34% in 2008.
There are two possible reasons. One, menthol is heavily marketed, particularly in African American neighborhoods. And second, there's a distinct possibility that menthol actually contributes to the ease of starting to smoke.
That's why Congress ordered the FDA's new Center for Tobacco Products to tackle menthol first and recommend whether the ingredient should be restricted or even banned.
As smokers acclimate to menthol, their demand for menthol increases over time.
This panel of scientists will be looking in particular at menthol use by African Americans. More than 75% of African American smokers use menthols, and their rates of lung cancer and heart disease are significantly higher than white smokers.
That's going to be kind of hard to knock out the menthol.
Tobacco giant Lorillard, maker of top-selling Newports, told CBS News Today, quote, "It is clear a menthol cigarette is just another cigarette and should be treated no differently." But the science is far less conclusive, so the FDA will have to determine whether menthol makes cigarettes more harmful or more addictive and take action accordingly by 2012. Katie?
Nancy Cordes in Washington. Nancy, thank you.
Let's keep it going.
Take our lead, let's help you make your mark. Our goal is your satisfaction. Let us show you the way.
A new study suggests menthol cigarettes could be more harmful to smokers than regular cigarettes. Researchers found menthol cigarette smokers had more trips to the emergency room and more hospitalizations or treatment for severe lung disease flare-ups.
Here we go again, family. First time ever, computer don't want to play a video because we're talking about menthol cigarettes and later marijuana. But I'm pressing play. Never had this ever happened before, ever. All of my lives, it's never happened. This is hilarious. All right, come on, come on, come on, come on. It's freezing and everything. Damn, Gina. Hey, maybe I should stuck to Diaspora Wars. I might be shadow banned for real. Wait, this shit ain't even playing. Go play it. Not even playing, families. Can't make this up. Can't make this up.
Let's help you make your mark.
The sale of menthol cigarettes has been banned throughout Spain from today. The ban is part of the EU Tobacco Product Directive laws, which was introduced in May 2014 and became applicable to European countries in May 2016. Shops that are found selling the banned flavor can face a fine of up to €10,000.
Let's help you make your mark.
Camel Crush Bold, Marlboro Smooth, Emo, Best Tasting Cigarette Made, Marlboro Skylines, Marlboro 72 Green or Blue Pack. Good if you don't have time for a full smoke. L&M Menthol, Pall Mall Spearmint, and Cool Filter Kings.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and hit the bell notification.
Hey there, YouTube fam. Welcome back to our channel. Today, we have a pressing topic to discuss: menthol cigarettes. Have you ever wondered why tobacco companies use menthol in their products? And more importantly, why are menthol cigarettes considered so harmful? Well, stick around because we're about to delve into the secrets of the tobacco industry. So first things first, why do tobacco companies use menthol in cigarettes? The answer lies in its alluring and deceptive qualities. Menthol, a natural compound derived from mint, is added to cigarettes for a few key reasons. Cooling sensation. Menthol creates a cooling sensation in the throat and airways, making the smoke feel less harsh. This makes it easier for beginners to start smoking and keeps existing smokers coming back for more. Masking bitterness. The bitterness of tobacco can be off-putting, but menthol masks this taste, making smoking more palatable. Minty flavor. The minty flavor can be appealing to some, even though it's still masking the harmful effects of smoking. Now let's talk about the deceptive marketing of menthol cigarettes. Tobacco companies have been known to target minority communities with menthol cigarette advertising disproportionately. These companies exploit cultural preferences and create a sense of community around menthol products. For decades, the tobacco industry has specifically marketed menthol cigarettes to minority communities, often through sponsorship of cultural events and community engagement. Menthol cigarettes can lead to higher addiction rates due to their masking properties, and it becomes harder for people to quit smoking when they start with menthol. So, what makes menthol cigarettes so harmful? The dangers extend beyond the well-known risks associated with smoking. Increased addiction. The cooling and masking effect of menthol can lead to increased nicotine intake, making it more difficult for users to quit smoking. Health disparities. Due to targeted marketing, minority communities suffer disproportionately from smoking-related health issues, including heart disease, cancer, and respiratory diseases. Gateway to smoking. Menthol cigarettes are often considered a gateway to smoking for young people. The appealing flavors and sensory experiences make them more enticing to beginners. Difficult to quit. Menthol cigarettes have been found to be more addictive and harder to quit than regular cigarettes, partly due to the minty flavor and perceived mildness. In conclusion, menthol cigarettes exist because they make smoking more attractive, especially to new and younger smokers. However, they come with a host of dangers, not only in terms of the health risks associated with smoking, but also due to their targeted marketing towards minority communities. It's essential to be aware of these issues and support efforts to reduce the accessibility and appeal of menthol cigarettes, all while encouraging individuals to quit smoking and lead healthier lives. That's a wrap for today's video. If you found this information helpful or informative, give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more eye-opening content. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Take our lead, let's help you make your mark. Our goal is your satisfaction. Let us show you the way.
Studies show higher rates of tobacco, nicotine, addiction while using menthol cigarettes compared to cigarettes that do not contain menthol. Menthol reduces the metabolism.
Okay, so at this point, I think the message is clear with menthol. So let's go ahead and get to some, let's go right here real fast.
No Tobacco Day. It's a day to try and get 100 million people around the world to kick the habit.
Yeah, here in New York State, there's a new initiative putting the spotlight on how the tobacco industry has really targeted African American communities for decades with its aggressive marketing of menthol-flavored tobacco products. The CDC says smoking-related illnesses are the #1 cause of death in the African American community, with 85% of African American smokers using menthol cigarettes. 7 Eyewitness News reporter Ala Arabi diving deeper into the numbers and sharing a few resources for those of you who are looking to stop smoking.
You go into the store, you find this colorful display of tobacco imagery, and it's attractive. So much so that it's become so normal in our communities.
A statewide campaign called It's Not Just is aimed at menthol-flavored tobacco marketing that targets African American communities.
What we know to be true is that 85% of Black people in this country smoke menthol or mentholated tobacco products.
This campaign, along with the Tobacco Free Coalition of Erie and Niagara, seek to educate communities about how the tobacco industry has aggressively marketed menthol products to African Americans, especially in urban communities. According to the CDC, tobacco companies have historically placed larger amounts of advertising in African American publications. And although cigarette smoking has declined since 1964, there are disparities across groups defined by race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status.
It is driven by this notion of profit, and just so happens that the people who are most vulnerable, they target specifically those populations.
In late April, the FDA announced it would ban menthol within the next year.
45,000 Black people, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, die every year as a result of tobacco-related illnesses.
According to the CDC, research shows that menthol cigarettes may be more addictive than non-menthol cigarettes. You can access free services through the New York State Quit line, which is 866-697-8487.
Like I said, I think that message was drilled into your head. All right, so let's go here now. So I wanted to show like how they targeted Black communities. Maybe let's look at this one. If not, we'll get to next.
Isn't the crispy, crunchy chicken but something cooler.
Crown 100.
Green bag.
Menthol, no menthol.
Your green bag.
Okay, menthol.
Store clerk Sonu Singh
brother.
doles out boxes of menthol cigarettes,
Camel Crush.
each packaged to show off just how minty and fresh its products are.
They are menthol. They are menthols. Menthol. These are non-menthol.
Having just bought a pack of Mavericks, Alea Davis explains why she's stuck with menthols her entire smoking life.
A menthol is gonna go through your system. A full flavor is gonna go. You're not gonna feel it all.
Why I still smoke?
Ernest Trent, too, has smoked menthol since the beginning.
I was 9.
9?
Yes.
Why?
My man said 9 years old.
Growing up in the projects, it was just like one of the cool things to do.
At age 63, Trent says the 54-year habit is hard to kick. Menthol itself isn't addictive, but the strong mint flavor masks the harshness of tobacco, allowing the smoker to inhale the nicotine deeper.
Nicotine is one of the hardest drugs in the world.
Since the 60s, tobacco companies have targeted the black community for menthol advertising. There were billboards and glossy spreads in black publications like Ebony, Essence, and Jet, showing off how the minty cool cigarettes made you literally cool.
It boils down to access.
Brittany Grant works for the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, an anti-smoking advocacy group working to protect young people from picking up a nicotine habit. Grant says the marketing in the past was so persuasive, thousands of older black smokers continue to pay the price 60 years later.
We know that yearly over 45,000 Black Americans die due to death and disease related to tobacco products. Yet, here's an industry putting money into spaces where they know that it's not been beneficial to the individuals.
Nationwide, research shows between 1980 and 2018, menthol cigarettes were responsible for 157,000 black lives lost to premature death. For being only 12% of the U.S. population, Black Americans are carrying a disproportionate 41% of all deaths related to menthols. This spurred the Washington State Department of Health to launch counter-programming, including the They Think They Know You campaign.
They think they got you all figured out.
For a year, they've run print, TV, and digital ads, and they know people are paying attention by the number of clicks and views they've counted.
Show them they're wrong.
The Department of Health says their latest run from mid-May to June 9th successfully made 3.9 million digital impressions.
It was a grown-up thing to do.
Kat Torres helped with the campaign.
In my hand, that's a cigarette.
When she started smoking at 18.
Every party that you went to, people were smoking. When I was growing up, what is out there now to teach you about how bad tobacco is for you? I don't think I would have ever started smoking.
It took years before Kat noticed the toll menthols took on her health.
I got really, really sick at some point and ended up going to the hospital. They didn't know what was wrong with me. They thought it was the flu. It wasn't the flu. But then they discovered I had Crohn's disease.
30 years ago, Kat made a decision that most likely saved her from a lifetime of medication.
When I quit, I realized that it was probably the best thing I could have ever done for myself.
Putting down menthols after 20 years put her Crohn's disease into remission.
They finally said, hey, we don't see anything anymore, so you're good to go. And I'm just like, yes, thank you, Jesus.
Kat is hoping her story can inspire others to take the leap, especially those who are younger.
I hope that this reaches a lot of the youth out there, because they're that next generation coming up. And so don't start if you haven't. And if you have, then stop.
The number of lives lost to this problem is staggering.
Yeah, it really is a big number to look at.
Yeah, and so Sharon, what about a national push to ban menthol cigarettes? Is that happening on any front?
Yeah, there have been efforts. The Food and Drug Administration drafted the ban on menthols, but this past April, that decision was indefinitely delayed. But it is clear.
Yeah, because they paid Attorney Benjamin Crump, and Al Sharpton to fight against the ban. Crazy.
Individual states are taking up the issue themselves. We know that Massachusetts banned all flavored tobacco products, including menthols. California also was the second state to follow suit. Right now in Washington, our state, menthols have not been banned yet.
Okay, and if any update comes, we'll be sure to let you know.
Yes.
Sharon, thank you.
When it comes to marijuana, the idea
let's go to marijuana
of
now.
legalizing its use, both recreationally and medically, has grown in the U.S. 2 weeks ago, 4 new states legalized recreational use of marijuana, bringing the total to 15 states. Medical marijuana use is allowed in 36 states. A Gallup poll released last week shows 68% of Americans favor legalizing it. That is double the rate from 2003. As the marijuana industry booms, Black and brown people who have been on the receiving end of legal troubles associated with it are being left out. That's the focus of a brand new documentary called Smoke, Marijuana, and Black America.
Music and marijuana go together real well. They were born for each other.
When I got to the NBA, guys around me played their off and they used cannabis.
This is $1 trillion business. Less than 1% of the licenses right now go to African Americans and Latinos.
This is about legalizing it, but it's more than about that. It's about restorative justice.
They need to free everybody that's locked up for marijuana today.
Smoke, the blunt truth about marijuana and Black America. Wednesday, November 18th at 10 on BET.
And I'm joined now by former NFL player and cannabis advocate, Ricky
That's Ricky Williams.
Hi, Ricky. Welcome. Great to have you with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, Ricky, this documentary really focuses on the impact, both good and bad, that marijuana has had on Black and brown communities in the U.S. What are your thoughts on that, and how has it impacted you personally?
Well, he lost his career at the NFL, his addiction to marijuana. But go ahead, Ricky, tell us.
Yeah, well, interesting question. So, for me, this doc was really about telling our side of the story. And if you think of history as, mainly been his story, the white male story, excluding minorities and excluding females, this is an opportunity to really tell the African American, or at least a version of the African American story as it deals with cannabis. And like all stories, there's a past, there's a present, and there's a future. And so I think the most insidious impact that the way America has viewed cannabis has had on brown and Black communities is that it's been used as a tool to incarcerate us. And it's cops are even trained. If you pull a minority over, search the car for a doobie or some paraphernalia so that we can put them into the system, and that needs to change.
And so the documentary does take a right, and the documentary takes a deep dive into just how unequal the justice system has been to Black and brown Americans, arrested for having small amounts of marijuana, who are then charged and given harsh sentences. Vice President-elect Kamala Harris is even in the documentary discussing this. Do you believe the Biden administration will push to have those people who've been convicted released and their records cleared?
I really hope so, and I think if any administration is going to do it, it would be this administration, and mainly because Vice President-elect has spent a lot of her professional career and personal career in Oakland, and I think Oakland, California, really in this country, has really led the way as far as trying to do the right thing relative to minorities and Black and brown communities in cannabis. And so she has the experience, she has the contacts, and I'm confident that because of her knowledge that we will see things change in the cannabis industry.
And California Congresswoman Barbara Lee has spoken out at length about Blacks being penalized for marijuana. Let's listen to what she had to say about it.
This is $1 trillion business. Less than 1% of the licenses right now go to African Americans and Latinos. And it is so important that those who've been most affected by these unjust laws benefit from the profit.
Can we just speak about Black Americans only? Why we got to always be inclusive to everybody else? When Latinos speak about things that harm them, they just speak about themselves. When in the Asian community talk about things that harm them, they talk about themselves. The Jewish community they talk about things that harm themselves. You feel me? Why when we talk, we gotta always include other groups, man. That's just getting annoying. Like she's paid like everybody else.
And the business aspect of this.
So, you can't ignore the business aspect of this. You can't ignore that this is a huge profit-making machine as more and more states legalize recreational marijuana or even just medical marijuana. So do you believe the federal government should perhaps enact a program where it not only releases and clears records, but makes space in the cannabis industry for, these people who've been charged to open a business?
No doubt about it. But in order to make it important enough to the government to do something about it, it really takes the people, it takes us, the people on the ground, the advocates, that to come out and tell our stories and to share our experiences. And inside of the industry, there's a pretty decent sized minority that is really pushing when it comes to regulation in states, really pushing for laws that keep this in mind and not only help get nonviolent cannabis offenders out of prison, but actually find a way to give back to the communities that have been most hurt by the draconian cannabis laws.
Mm-hmm. And so when it comes to professional sports, something you know a lot about, the MLB and NHL appear to be far more progressive when it comes to marijuana use. What do you think is the reason behind that, certain organizations being more open-minded about it than others?
I think a lot of it does have to do with race, and NHL and MLB are predominantly, or have less African Americans, or a smaller percentage than the NFL. And so part of it is cultural. But I think, just to stand up and to say something positive about the NFL is they've become more progressive. This past offseason, they said that no players will ever be suspended for using cannabis, which is a huge step in the right direction. And like I said before, I think as more people share their honest lived stories and experiences with cannabis, then the stigma and the lies and the misinformation can be wiped away and people can get a clear sense. And hopefully, eventually, as it becomes regulated more, we can bring more science into it and more research into really understanding how cannabis can help people.
So you mentioned the ways the NFL has changed and become a little bit more open-minded, changing its policy for marijuana offenders, focusing more on drug treatment programs instead of suspension. Number one, I wonder if you think that's enough of a change. And number two, if that policy was in place when you were playing, do you think you would have stayed in the league?
Oh, no doubt about it, I would have stayed in the league. And I was able to still play 11 seasons and rush for over 10,000 yards, but I missed two seasons in my heyday. And I think had NFL been more open to cannabis, I definitely would have played longer. But more importantly, anyone that watched football this past weekend or that watches football, they see that it's a brutal game and we take a pounding. And is the NFL doing enough? I think it's a great start, but they're not doing enough. I think the NFL should be ahead of this, is because early research is showing that cannabis can help football players deal with recovery, deal with long-term brain trauma. So I think the NFL should be funding research to do everything they can to get the best treatment and medicine available for the football players.
All right. Well, Ricky Williams, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, my man.
The legalization.
Yeah, my man chose his addiction and love for marijuana. His addiction really for marijuana over his addiction for money. Millions in NFL. Wild.
Of marijuana is a hot topic in our state right now.
The local group is concerned about the impact this will have on African American communities. Today, experts from around the country are tackling the issue.
7 Action News reporter Bethany Moore is at an event. And Bethany, is there a large group there?
Yeah, we had a pretty large group that came in. It started around 4, so they've got multiple speakers, so they've kind of been trickling in and out. But the people that we talked to said that this is a very important topic to tackle.
I just want to walk away more informed because I'm not really well versed in the whole thing. as I should be.
Curtis Green showed up early to make sure he got a good seat. He says he's been looking forward to someone facing this topic because he thinks it will help.
I think it's a good economic base, definitely be a wonderful revenue stream for the city, and I wanted to come and hear other people's opinions and those type of things.
Will Jones, with smart approaches to marijuana out of D.C., came in to help people understand the impact.
People often say we should regulate marijuana like alcohol, and that's actually what frightens me.
He fears it will be the same situation with a disproportionate amount of alcohol stores in black communities now.
For many that live in neighborhoods like where I live, it's not going to be a good thing. It's going to have a negative health impact on the community.
He says it's not an either or of criminalization or legalization.
Really, we look towards policies that will remove criminal penalties for marijuana use, but at the same time not allow a commercial industry that will really disproportionately target and locate themselves in communities of color, just like we see with alcohol, just like we see with tobacco.
Now this event goes till 7 o'clock.
My fault, family. I think we're frozen for temporarily. It'll unfreeze in a second. It's been going crazy lately. Okay, are we gonna unfreeze? Are we gonna unfreeze? Yeah, the man, this these addictive substances has been targeting black communities as the black community as you know. Hold on, I gotta unshare. It'll play.
Just heard Will Jones. He doesn't speak till 6, so you still got time to come on out and hear him speak. Reporting live, Bethany Moore, 7 Action News.
All right, Bethany, thank you.
All right. Is that it? Are we ready to start the show? I think so. I think that might have been the last bit of okay. All right, so now let's get to the information part of the show. Your favorite part, right? Right. Okay, let me put my Cash App back in the building. All right. Okay, so let's do it. Where are we going to start at? Okay, let's start from the tippy top. All right, let's go back to menthol cigarettes. Were they banned nationally? No. There's no nationwide ban in effect. We still see them because the FDA has proposed a national menthol ban and a flavored cigar ban, but it has not been finalized, implemented amid regulatory review and expected litigation. So menthols remain legal federally. All right. So several states and cities did it on their own, banned these menthol cigarettes, Massachusetts statewide and California statewide, plus various local ordinances. That's why availability varies by location. Okay, so menthol makes smoke smoother, easing your initiation, right? It's linked to lower quit rates. That means it's hard to quit menthol cigarettes. So if you are a menthol smoker, it's not your fault. You've been targeted for one. And secondly, the menthol was created so you can't quit. So don't get too hard on yourself if you're struggling to quit. And it was aggressively marketed to Black communities. About 80% and more of Black smokers use menthol cigarettes. Okay, so a little bit of background on myself. I worked with the USDA with meats. I worked in pharmaceutical companies, hell of them, over like 10 years. I worked with the FDA with that. And I worked in cannabis regulated facilities. And I noticed that the regulation for cannabis is more relaxed compared to like your regular pharmaceuticals, Tylenol, pain medicine, things like that. They're way more strict on cleanliness, sanitation, all that type of stuff, as opposed to cannabis facilities. And I'm like, damn, What's up with that? So, um, so it says cannabis. It says, so I did some research. I said, yo, are cannabis facilities manufacture cannabis manufacturing facilities regulated like pharma? And the answer is no, they're not. Okay. So cannabis does not equate to FDA drug standards. Cause I'm telling you, I'm like, why are we allowed to do some shit in here that you'll be thrown in prison in a pharmaceutical company? Okay, so it says pharmaceutical plants must meet FDA GMP validated processes, sterility controls, stability studies, intensive quality systems, etc. It says state legal cannabis follows state testing, labeling rules, potency, pesticides, heavy metals, microbes, often ISO 17025 labs, but not FDA GMP. Okay. Standards vary widely, and lab shopping scandals, inflated THC have surfaced in some markets. Yeah. So what you just really heard was that when you read about when you go to dispensaries or you buy your marijuana or infused marijuana products, the label ain't really exactly what's in your infused marijuana product. It ain't like the pharmaceutical companies where it has to be damn near everything the label says. So the bottom line, compared to Tylenol compared to Tylenol RX plants, cannabis rules are much looser, though still far safer than street unregulated supply. I'm telling you firsthand, the stuff that goes on in cannabis regulated facilities, you be like, we can do that? Like you be feeling like, especially when you got pharmaceutical background, how strict the pharmaceutical companies are. Like you be feeling like what? Like I could do that? Like nah. So we ain't gonna sterilize that before we. You sure we can? That don't even seem right. So when I use the bathroom, you ain't gotta wash your hands. Like, all right. Anyway, so for those who say they grow their own marijuana, and maybe you use your personal, if you grow it, you probably use it or you sell it. I want to know if you sold it, if you grew your own and you sold it, is your marijuana, because you grew it, is your marijuana more safer than a dispensary? Okay. So I said, give me the pros and cons of homegrown marijuana. Okay. So the pros are obviously full control over inputs, organic, no mystery pesticides, low cost per gram after setup, trailer strains, fresh curing. Cons, legality varies. Plant limits, landlord issues, steep learning curve, upfront gear costs, risk of mold, pests, and improper curing, and no lab tests unless you pay one. So that's the problem, family, when you buy the street marijuana. Ain't no lab test. And you are at risk of molds and pests. What about dispensary? Okay, pros, mandatory testing, batch tracking, recalls, label potency, wide product range, legal convenience. Cons, higher price, taxes, potency inflation in some markets. Sometimes overly high THC options, tolerance, dependence risk. Shelf age, terpene loss if stored poorly. To sell, do not home grow and sell without a license. Cannabis sales are tightly regulated by states and remain illegal federally. Penalties can be severe. Don't forget. Yes, I'm getting twisted. Okay, so there was a video. Let me share my screen. There was a video being surfaced about the side effects of marijuana, and they were not good. Okay, so I'm gonna show you the video. Let me see if I can find it. Let me try to hurry up and find it. Okay, so it gotta be over here somewhere. 1 second. 1 second. I know it's on Facebook. Let me try this way. Oh man, super chat in the building. Thank you, first class citizen. $5 super chat. It's all political and due to lobbying. $5 super chat. Peace for the love. Thank you very much. All right, hold on. Why the hell am I stuck on the non? All right, so this video I can't play. I can't play because of it got so many damn views. I know, and then it's about marijuana too, so I know they'll stop my stream, and I might get flagged. So I won't even dare try. But it was a cool video. But I'm just gonna show you the video. I'm gonna put the link in the chat. Here we go, right here. I found it. I ain't gonna play it though.
But it's not.
Relax. Okay. So there's a video right here. And as you can see, it's called We Have to Talk About. It's a dope channel. The link is the name right here. It talks about the after effects or the symptoms of heroin, fentanyl, all type of dangerous drugs. And so 11 million views in 11 months, pretty much 1 million views per month. We have to talk about weed. All right, it's a dope video. It goes into the science and everything. 14 minutes. So anyway, I'm going to respond to the summary of the video. Right. Let me add the video in the chat first for those who might. It's dope. Okay. That's the link of the video in the chat. All right. Okay. So I'm gonna respond to that video, right? So what the video actually got right. Potency has risen sharply. Flower often 15 to 20%, a little bit more, and concentrates 60 to 90% plus. Higher THC amplifies risks. So what Dr. Wesley Muhammad said earlier was correct. Okay, higher THC amplifies risks. Use is up, including daily use. All right. Addiction is real. 10 to 20% develop cannabis use disorder. CUD, that's acronym. It's a real acronym. Cannabis use disorder. It's when them guys be smoking all day, every day. It says 1 in 10 become seriously dependent. Cause I had some guy tell me that nobody's addicted to marijuana, like just made up some bullshit. Cannabis, so this is for you if you're watching. Cannabis use disorder. CUD, CUD. 1 in 10 becomes seriously dependent, daily impaired functioning. Biggest risk factors: high THC, frequency, early start. Withdrawal exists. Yep, like a dope head. Irritability, low mood, poor sleep, vivid dreams, appetite changes, usually resolves over days, weeks. Dang. Y'all be feeling like a dope head? Cognition, heavy long-term use is linked to worse memory. I'll be debating weed heads. They be swearing they recall what I said verbatim. Like, okay, sure. Attention, learning, and motivation. Many effects improve after quitting, but some uncertainties remain. Damn. Okay. Teens are uniquely vulnerable. So, of course, teens are usually targeted. Earlier, heavier, high THC use is associated with higher addiction risk. So they want you addicted. Okay. School problems and greater risk of psychosis like disorders, depression, and anxiety later. So when you guys want to pass that marijuana to a teen, shame on you. Then it ruined that girl's life. Harm comparison. Even with these risks, cannabis is still less harmful than alcohol overall, but it's not harmless. But weed is from the earth. So nuance to add, legalization makes quality testing and education possible, which can reduce contaminant harms, but it also puts a lot of very high THC products on shelves, which raises dose-related risks. So everything's about what Dr. Wesley Muhammad spoke about earlier. High THC levels is the problem. Okay, so weed today is stronger than ever, family. Weed today is stronger than ever. More people use it daily, and about 1 out of 2 in 10 users develop a cannabis use disorder, CUD, especially with high THC products. Frequent use and starting young, family. It's important to get our youth young addicted to menthol cigarettes and high THC marijuana. Okay. Withdrawal is real but temporary. Heavy long-term use can dull memory, attention, and motivation. That's the last thing we need, to be unmotivated. We got too much work to do, especially with high THC products. Where we at? And in teens is linked to higher risk for addiction and mental health issues later. In teens, health issues, like mental illness, right? Mental health issues later. These teens, family, is getting on marijuana at high THC levels later. Mental illness later in their life. Cannabis still harmless than alcohol, but it's not harmless. Treat it like a drug with upsides and downsides. Aim for moderation. Avoid. You know what avoid means? It means get away from it. Avoid high THC if you're sensitive, and teens should wait. Okay, but how do you know high THC levels is in the marijuana? In street marijuana. You don't know because it's not regulated. You don't know if it's high, low, whatever. You got to believe the guy who uses his disgusting hands, unwashed hands. He baggy, he baggies your damn marijuana in a fucking trap house. Ain't nothing sterilized over there, nothing disinfected. You feel me? That's what you smoking. Okay. So now we're gonna talk about some things. So skip blunts, fronto, tobacco wraps add nicotine. So we want to talk about blunts because you got the leaf joint type of paper roll-ups. You got the bongs and you got the Philly blunts, the Dutch masters, right? So tobacco wraps add nicotine and tobacco specific carcinogens. Worst combo. So the worst combo to smoke marijuana is officially and accurately tobacco wraps. Your Philly blunts, your Dutch masters, all of those. They add nicotine and tobacco specific carcinogens, and that's the worst combination you want to mess with when you're smoking marijuana. And guess what's given to the teens? So not only they shouldn't have teens because of high THC levels, but the teens are getting the worst combination of a blunt. They're getting the tobacco wraps when they should have anything than a tobacco wrap. That is the worst combination with marijuana, that nicotine and that marijuana. Okay, so of course, avoid smoking during pregnancy and breastfeeding. If used daily, try tolerance breaks and track sleep, mood, motivation. Teens, best to wait. Risks are meaningfully higher. Okay, so anyway, when we talk about menthol, I'm gonna go back and forth a little bit with menthol cigarettes and marijuana. So menthol cigarettes, they were targeted to black communities. That's in between the 1960s and the 2000s. Okay, so the brands that target us were Cool, Newport, Salem, and later Marlboro menthol. Like somebody said in the chat, Marlboro was not menthol for a long time. It's a white boy cigarette, and then they eventually put the menthol in there. So, all right, Negroes, you want to be white? Here you go. So you had now. What about ad placement, family? Check this out. This is confirmed. This is confirmed. So ad placement, heavy buys in Ebony, Jet, Essence magazines, right? Urban Radio, our radio stations, bus shelters, and a denser concentration of billboards. Interesting. Point of sale in black neighborhoods, plus deeper price discounts and coupons to make it affordable. They wanted us to be addicted, be permanent customers. You're a customer, homie. Cultural tie-ins, sponsorships of jazz, R&B, and hip hop shows, and neighborhood events, urban imagery, and green ice colorways promising smoothness. So sampling, street teams, free packs at bars, clubs, historically now illegal. Okay, so who are the people who expose these menthol cigarettes to black people? We don't want to say they, them, these plural pronouns without putting a name on it. So in 1998, master settlement agreed, forced release of internal tobacco documents. Public health researchers, e.g., UCSF's Legacy Tobacco Documents Library, Truth Initiative, and the CDC analyzed thousands of memos showing explicit Black American targeting. Family, these guys had it documented in their notes. These cigarette companies and these cigarette ads, right? They had it documented how they were targeting us. So this ain't no hearsay. This is confirmation. It's confirmed. It's a fact. U.S. versus Philip Morris, 2006. A federal judge found major companies liable under RICO for a long campaign of deception. The record includes data on targeted marketing. FDA, TPSAC, 2011. Menthol report plus later CDC FDA work. Menthols increase youth initiation and reduce sensitization. By the 2010s, 80%. Listen, by the 2010s, 80 to 85% of black smokers use menthol, an engineered outcome of marketing. Marketing was on point. Marketing was so good. Almost when we smoked cigarettes, we damn near chose the cigarette that was marketed to us. So if y'all own a business, y'all don't want to put money back into marketing for your business, just think about the cigarette ads. They definitely put money in marketing. Okay, so why menthols are, on average are more addictive? We heard the videos. So pharmacology, menthol activates TRMP8 cooling and has a mild anesthetic effects. Smoke feels smoother, so people inhale deeper, hold longer, which increases your addiction. Nicotine kinetics. Menthol can slow nicotine metabolism, CYP2A6, nudging higher nicotine exposure per cigarette. Behavioral effect. Easier initiation, plus smoother puffs, stronger reinforcement, hard quitting, higher relapse, especially in youth. Again, the youth with the cigarettes are being targeted. Our youth with marijuana is being targeted. So blunt wraps and its origins. All right. Let's talk about it. So the Caribbean link, because there's some rumors that blunt wraps originated from the Caribbean, or it was the Caribbean who introduced that way of smoking marijuana with the worst combination, the blunt wraps with the marijuana. So the research says partially truth. Jamaica, Caribbean, long used spliffs, cannabis mixed with tobacco, spliffs. So yes, they were mixing tobacco with. I hope my boy listening because he said some crazy stuff earlier on the phone. But you forgot about spliffs, my boy. Spliffs are cannabis mixed with tobacco. Okay, and frontal graba, aired cured tobacco leaf. In diaspora communities, that culture influenced NYC. You know, NYC is immigrant heavy. Okay, so U.S. blunt practice, hollowing, cigars, cigarillos, e.g., Phillies blunt, Dutch masters, and filling with cannabis appears in the late 1980s. Late 1980s is when Jesse Jackson said, "Hey, you're African American," and is when we've seen a large influx of diaspora immigrants and African immigrants. So anyway, cannabis appears in the late 1980s, East Coast Black Latino scenes, NYC, Philly. Okay, so earliest mainstream reference show up in early 1990s, hip hop lyrics media. So diaspora influence plus U.S. urban innovation, blunt wraps, pre-rolled flavored tobacco sheets, marketed mass market products took off in the 1990s. 1990 was a lot of African immigrants over here. So diaspora influence plus U.S. urban innovation. Blunt wraps, pre-roll flavored tobacco sheets. Okay, mass market products took off in the 1990s after the cigar to cannabis trend was already popular. So the natural question is why tobacco blunt wraps are the most toxic way to smoke weed versus a joint or a bong? Okay, for one, the tobacco blunt adds tobacco toxins, TSNAs, tobacco specific nitrosamines, extra carbon monoxide, heavy metals, flavoring chemicals on top of cannabis combustion byproducts, nicotine exposure, more compulsive use, longer dependence pairing, wrap thickness and burn, cigar leaf burns hotter, longer, often equals bigger total smoke volume per session. Bong versus joint. Blunt is the worst of the three. Okay. It says cannabis, smoke plus tobacco toxins, nicotine is the worst combination to use with marijuana. You have the joint, to use with a joint. A little different. Okay. Okay. So let me just catch up a little bit. So the joints. You put marijuana in joints. Plain, unflavored paper, right? No nicotine. So, you know, it's not addictive. And the bong, water cools, it removes some water soluble irritants. It does not remove tar though, but the smoothness can lead to larger hits. More tar, THC overall, still combustion. Okay. So then you got hemp wraps, nicotine free. You got harm reduction pivot, dry herb vaporizers, not oil cars. Okay, not the oil cars. At moderate temps, far fewer combustion toxins, edibles, tinctures remove inhalation risk altogether. So they champion some edibles. Okay, so now where do you buy your marijuana from? Hold on, let me look at the chat real fast if I go too much ahead of myself. We got the indigenous black man in the building. He said I use a bong. Smoke a blunt first. He say crazy. All right. Okay. Where was I? Okay. So buying weed from a dispensary versus the street. As you can imagine, dispensary pros and cons. The pros from buying marijuana in dispensary, testing and labels. Potency, THC, CBD, pesticides, heavy metals, mold, aspergillus, residue solvents for extraction. Okay, QR codes, batch batch tracking, recalls. They do recalls, right? Product variety, a standardized dosing, storage requirements, some consumer protections. Cons, price tax premium, inconsistent lab quality in some regions, occasional lab shopping, potency inflation scandals, heavy THC trends can push tolerance. What about buying your marijuana from the street? Let's talk about that. So we got often cheaper, wider informal availability, anonymity. So that is the pros. The cons to buying your crack, your marijuana, your fentanyl, marijuana from the streets is no testing or recalls, variable curing, storage, mold risk, unknown pesticides, potency mislabeling, possible adulterants, especially concentrates, carts, and legal risk. At your own risk, basically. So menthols were intentionally aimed at Black communities, proved by internal documents, federal findings, and decades of ad patterns. They're harder to quit because menthol masks harshness and alters nicotine exposure behavior. Blunts merge cannabis with tobacco toxins plus nicotine, making them the highest risk way to smoke weed among common methods. Earliest, hold on, bro. Have a good night. All right. So my fault. I'm out and about. You know what I mean? I was having a conversation with a close friend of the family. And like normally I'll let the microphone pick up the conversation naturally, but not when I know people personally, because we're gonna talk about, personal people, names and addresses and locations. So you gotta be wise when you let the mic be open and let it be closed. So anyway, sorry for that. So menthols were intentionally aimed at Black communities, proved by internal documents, federal findings, and decades of ad patterns. They're harder to quit because menthol masks harshness and alters nicotine exposure behavior. Blunts, blunts. Listen. This hurts. I know this hurts. This hurt. The truth hurts. The truth ain't nice. But listen to the facts. Blunts merge cannabis with tobacco, toxins, plus nicotine, making them the highest risk way to smoke weed among common methods. Earliest use of blunt, right? Blunt use. Earliest U.S. blunt use. Roots in late 1880s, 1980s, my bad. Late 1980s, early 1990s. Exactly the time Jesse Jackson became African American, and exactly the time we had a lot of influx of immigrants in the country. East Coast, and look where it's at. East Coast. A lot of those immigrants were positioned right on the East Coast. So East Coast urban scenes influenced by Caribbean spliff, frontal culture. Okay, family. Let's look at what a Caribbean split looks like. Any imagery. There you go. So there is some truth to that when people say that a lot of this blunt tobacco, weed was introduced by the Caribbean targeting foundational Black Americans. We see earliest U.S. blunt use roots in late 18, I keep saying 18, in late 1980s and early 1990s. East Coast urban scenes influenced by Caribbean spliff frontal culture with commercial blunt wraps exploding in the 1990s. Caribbean spliff, 1990s. A lot of correlation here. Okay. Yes. Yes. Dispensary flower is more regulated, traceable than street weed, though not perfect. If you inhale plain paper joints or better, dry herb vaporization. So that's where the research points at, family. The research points to dry herb vaporization. They're safer than tobacco wraps. So you guys want to indulge? By all means, try to Google, try to order the dry herb vaporization, right? They're safer than tobacco wraps. Okay. So skip tobacco. I mean, all the research says try to avoid tobacco wraps, blunts, Dutch masters, anything spliffs, frontal. What is that thing called? Frontal. Try to avoid frontals, spliffs, any tobacco wrap. The research said that's not even should be a choice. It says choose hemp papers or vaping flower. Okay. Don't hold smoke in. Like I see some of y'all crackheads holding smoke in. It says most THC absorbs in seconds. You see? So you're not doing much. If shopping legally, scan the COA for pesticides, heavy metals, and aspergillus testing. You know, a lot of y'all don't do that. Y'all just want to smoke, get high, and y'all smoking on mold. Yeah, y'all high out your mind. Y'all think it's the marijuana. You smoke, you high off mold and pesticides and metals and stuff like that. So if you ever notice musty smell, you ever know something, that's crazy, right? It said it literally says if you ever notice musty smell, that's interesting because now they say a lot of the tobacco nicotine mixed with cannabis comes from the Caribbean influence. And now it says musty smell, chest irritation, don't use it, mold risk. So if your marijuana smells like, ooh, wee, that sticky, icky, all that funny stuff y'all be doing, mold. Mold, you smoking, you high off mold. So now I was told that the governments, of the world had burned down the marijuana fields in Jamaica and gave them their own marijuana seed to grow in Jamaica and push this towards people and blah blah blah. Let's talk about that because some of that did happen, but it's always a conspiracy twist story in there. So it says field eradication did happen. It says beginning in the 1990s and continuing for decades, Jamaica ran ganja eradication campaigns with its police and defense force often funded, supported by the U.S. as part of a wider anti-narcotics programs, right? Crops are routinely cut and burned and sometimes treated with herbicides. That part is documented policy, not a conspiracy. Why? The aim was to reduce, watch this. Now, see, it's the why part that somebody gave me the conspiracy theory with. So burning down all that stuff was true. He said that. But the why part, he didn't say what I'm about to read. He said some conspiracy stuff. The aim was to reduce exports to the U.S. market during the war on drugs, similar to eradication elsewhere in the region. One more time. The aim was to reduce exports to the U.S., not, magnify it or multiply it. It says reduce exports to the U.S. market during the war on drugs, similar to eradication elsewhere in the region. Okay. Foreign governments burn fields, then gave Jamaica special. So this is what I was told. I was told that foreign governments burned fields, then gave Jamaica special seeds to grow for U.S. dispensaries, blah, blah, blah. But the fact is, there is no credible evidence in the U.S. or any European government distributing replacement cannabis seeds in Jamaica to prep genetics for American retail. In the U.S., federal law still bans imported commercial cannabis, and state dispensaries source from state licensed domestic growers. Okay, so yeah, so there you go. So there's no foreign imports. Everything is domestically grown. Jamaica's modern legal industry is overseen by the Cannabis License Authority, CLA. Seeds genetics move through licensed channels and private breeders companies, not covert government seed programs. So my boy got a lot of explaining. But of course, he's gonna be like, man, nah, what you read is garbage. What I know is true, and he ain't gonna be able to give me a source. He's gonna it's true because he said so, basically, because he wants to believe that. But while foreign, including Canadian companies, have invested in Jamaican medical cannabis, and some exports for medical research exist to certain countries, that's business regulatory, not a secret seed swap by governments. So that's not secret. That's known. That's public records. What we're reading. This is not some hidden file that you found under a goddamn Christmas tree, okay, or under a rainbow. This is a fact. Okay, so now let's talk about Jamaica in the late 1800s. Because one of my boys, another friend of mine, hit me up on a group chat. Was like, "Yo, man, before you do this live, you need to go ahead and learn about Jamaica in the 1800s and blah blah blah." It's like, dude, you must don't know what Wesley Snipes say in Blade. You must don't know who you effing with. Okay, bro. So this is for you. Roots of ganja in Jamaica, late 1800s, early 1900s. This is for you. Okay. When I do research, man, it's usually I's dotted, T's crossed. Indian indentured laborers brought cannabis and the word ganja to Jamaica after emancipation. Use spread among workers and later Rastafari, mid 20th century. Who framed it is a sacrament. Cultural export, 1960s, 1970s, through reggae Rastafari, e.g. Bob Marley, Peter Tosh. Jamaica popularized the language, imagery, and normalization of ganja globally. Very influential in U.S. Black urban culture. Uh-oh. In my SETI voice. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. One more time. Cultural export, 1960s, 1970s, through reggae, Rastafari, e.g. Marley, Peter Tosh. Jamaica popularized the language, imagery, and normalization of ganja globally. Very influential in U.S. Black urban culture. You damn Jamaicans. You sit there and say the worst things about us. We're degenerate, thugs, blah, blah, and you guys been giving us your degenerate culture ever since you got to the States en masse. Okay. How about 1970s and through the 1980s, smuggling, market influence. Before U.S. Sinsemilla took off, a lot of cannabis in the U.S. came from Mexico, Colombia, and the Caribbean, including Jamaica, via small boats and couriers. Jamaican and Colombian became common street descriptors for imported weed. Diaspora corridors, NYC, Miami, Boston, connected Caribbean supply and U.S. demand. Slang and practices, terms like ganja, sensi, and ritualized smoking spread into U.S. scenes via, you can't make this up. Ritualized smoking spread into U.S. scenes via Caribbean migration, music, and record touring circuits. Family, we ain't start smoking weed until our Jamaican brothers and sisters came to this country. One more time, slang and practices. Terms like ganja, sensi, and ritualized smoking spread into U.S. scenes via Caribbean migration, music, and record. All right, man, have a good one. And record touring circuits. So you see, family, I'm out here. I'm out in the public. I'm at a busy place, live. Everybody can see me. You know, people been saying what's up to me. I've been going on mute, but we out here. Yeah, if y'all can support, hit the Cash App. If not, like the button, subscribe, notification bell. When did weed become a huge deal in black neighborhoods? Think of it. It says think of it in three waves: jazz, age, normalization. 1920s, 1930s. Cannabis was already embedded in black nightlife. Tea pads in Harlem, KC, New Orleans, Chicago. The Federal Marijuana Tax Act 1937 criminalized it, but the subculture persisted. Cheap imports plus mass uptake 1970s. After the Controlled Substances Act 1970, demand still grew. Imported brick and loose flour, Mexican, Colombian, Jamaican, flooded cities. Prices were accessible. Dealing became common street commerce in many black neighborhoods, targeting us again. Culturally, funk, soul, reggae, early hip hop reference weed often. Blunt era and street economy, early 1990s onward. Blunts, e.g., Phillies, Dutch Masters, took off in NYC and other East Coast black and Caribbean neighborhoods, then spread nationwide via hip hop. We remain a neighborhood staple even as crack dominated the late 80s. The 1990s brought aggressive policing, stop and frisk, low-level possession arrests that disproportionately hit black communities. That's what Michelle Alexander was talking about earlier with the new Jim Crow. By the 2000s, supply shifted heavily to domestic grows, West Coast, then nationwide, but retail on city corners stayed visible until recent legalization waves. Okay? So the field eradication, it did happen. It began in the 1970s and continued for decades. Jamaica ran ganja eradication campaigns with its police and defense force, often funded, supported by the U.S. as part of a wider anti-narcotics programs. Crops are routinely cut and burned and sometimes treated with herbicides. That part is documented policy, not conspiracy. And why? The aim was to reduce exports to the U.S. market during the war on drugs, similar to eradication elsewhere in the region. Had nothing to do with America, or a secret government saying, hey, grow these seeds only. You need to provide that source, sir. Okay. Okay, so earlier, Mr. Dr. Wesley Muhammad said marijuana is used to mildly feminize people and black people, melanated people. Okay, well, that claim is he said the claim was modern enhanced marijuana feminizes men and masculinizes women. That information is unsupported. Like there's no it's inconclusive. There's no data that says that heavy cannabis use can affect some reproductive endpoints, e.g., sperm parameters, but there's no good human evidence that cannabis systematically feminizes men or masculinizes women. Those are broad social biological outcomes not established by clinical data. In other words, you made that up. So he said THC lowers testosterone. Okay, that's a mixed verdict right there. Small short-term drops in testosterone and testosterone have been reported right after use in some studies. Other studies show no lasting effect. Chronic, clinically meaningful testosterone suppression in adult males from cannabis alone isn't well demonstrated. So you kind of like, I made that up too. He says smoke makes phenols, which are estrogens. Excess estrogen feminizes men and masculinizes women. That claim is 100% false. Phenols are a large chemical class. Many are just irritants. They are not estrogens. Cannabis smoke doesn't deliver pharmaceutical estrogen, and excess estrogen doesn't masculinize women. Okay. Androgen exposure does. So he got his facts mixed up there. He said weed causes male breasts, gynecomastia. Okay, so again, that's a weak, unsupported claim. A few case reports exist, but large, well-controlled studies, okay, don't show a clear causal link between cannabis and gynecomastia, which is the male breast. Obesity, meds, alcohol, and hormones are far more established drivers. So he kind of made that up too. Okay, he said, today weed has far higher THC than in the past. That is true. He's finally right. So far, he had a lot of claims, and he's finally right. Average U.S. flower potency rose from 3 to 4% 1990s to 15. So about 6 to 7 times more. 15 to 20% and more by the 2010s. Concentrates can be 60 to 90%. God damn. Right? 1930s figures are sparse. 1% is probably an underestimate, but potency has climbed a lot. That's crazy. So he says scientists added a nitrogen atom to THC to make it like heroin. That's why it's so addictive. That's 100% false. THC is a cannabinoid. No basic nitrogen. Heroin is an opioid. An alkaloid derivative adding nitrogen to THC would make a different molecule altogether. There's no evidence that's what's in modern cannabis. Cannabis dependence occurs without turning THC into an opioid. So he was 100% wrong with that. Okay, he said MK Ultra, Edgewood, arsenal weaponized marijuana. He said the dispensary supply is part of that. Misleading. The CIA Army didn't test many agents, including synthetic cannabinoids, for incapacitation in the mid-20th century. That history is public, but there's no evidence today's commercial dispensary flower is a government weaponized product. Legal market cannabis is grown by private firms and must pass safety tests in regulated states. Okay, he said there was an army conquered by a cannabis project and a compound EA 2233 proving the plot. That is partially garbled. Okay, the Army's Edgewood program assigned EA posed to many test agents and studied synthetic cannabinoid and analogs as positive incapacitating agents. That's real history. It doesn't prove modern retail cannabis was altered by government chemistry or that THC now contains nitrogen. Making shit up. Okay, then he said dispensary weed is as dangerous weapon and weaponized as street weed. False, safety, mixed, potency. So legal markets require contaminant testing, mold, heavy metals, pesticides, and batch tracking. Street markets don't. However, legal products also include very high THC items, which can increase adverse effects and dependence. So potency risk is real and contaminant risk is lower in dispensaries. Okay, so that's that. Let me see if I got anything else. I repeat myself too many times over and over and over. Yeah, I think that might be it. Peace to my life has. Oh, I gotta read that super chat. Hold on. Oh, we got some super chats. Well, we got come on, load up. We got my life been exchanged for yours, FBA, right? Out. But I'm reading some comments to some old videos. And it's like a lot of people appreciating the channel. So I appreciate y'all for appreciating the channel. Okay. So we got my life has been exchanged for Europe FBA. He said, F Menthol, I'm getting on the new mayor of New York. He's not going to take FBA land. It's not going to happen. Zoran, never, never. Thank you. Thank you for the message and thank you for the super chat. $10, man. IBM said, bars, Beyonce voice. I'm gonna say pause to that. Okay. Okay, then he said showing love earlier with a super chat $5. It's $15 altogether. Thank you, man. Appreciate you. So visible to all users that I rewound to the start video. So I'm 30 minutes in on 1.5 speed. Gotta say, I added some mint leaves from my backyard to my outdoor sometimes, and homegrown mint joints are fire. Also chew the leaves like gum. And I'm reading a funny comment. All right. So let's get back busy. So now, Michelle Alexander had tied all this in her book, The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration and the New Age of Color Blindness. I got that book, read it a hell of time. All right, so what's she argue? Michelle Alexander argues the war on drugs and marijuana at the center of low-level policing, built a new racial caste system, not by explicit race laws, but via race-neutral drug laws enforced through discretionary policing, prosecution, and sentencing that have disparate racial impacts. The result, mass incarceration, followed by a lifetime of felon stigma, voting, housing, job benefits. Those things going to affect you with such a charge, such a conviction. Okay, so she talks about policy incentives, federal burns, and later JAG, there's a movie called JAG, or a show called JAG, grants rewarded local agencies for drug arrests. The easiest hits are street level marijuana possession. So not only were we targeted with this marijuana, with the boosted THC levels, that becomes highly addictive and really targeting teens. If that wasn't enough, the Caribbean introduced a spliff, a tobacco wrap that made marijuana and nicotine combination just very toxic. And again, the research shows there is no worse way to smoke marijuana than to use tobacco nicotine wraps with the weed. Okay. Okay, so let's go. So now, civil asset forfeiture. This is crazy. Let departments keep, seize cash, cars, incentivizing drug sweeps and pretext stops. Right. So, family, if they if they raid your house and they found some significant marijuana, they can seize your. These officers owned your home. They can seize your house, your car. If you had a fly car or something they like, that's theirs. Jewelry, laptops, that's theirs. Okay. They're gonna say you bought it from drug illegal money. The Supreme Court green lights. Alexander highlights these. So Wren versus United States, 1996. Police may use any minor traffic violation as a pretext for a drug stop. Opens the door to selective enforcement. Florida versus Bostic, 1991. Consensual searches during bus sweeps. Okay. Tilt power against coerced passengers. Illinois versus Warlock, 2000. Unprovoked flight in a high crime area supports reasonable suspicion, codifies place-based ultra-racialized policing. Keep knocking the mic. I think you're done right there. But anyway, Michelle Alexander shows how colorblind drug laws, especially marijuana, enforcement created a racial caste system. So we're targeted on being a user, and meanwhile, if you are selling it, you face way more harsh penalties than a user. So a racial caste system was created based on marijuana itself. Black and white people use now look, here's the hit look family. If you're gonna take away anything from this right here, take away this right here, take away the disparities, the racial disparities or not. Okay. So Michelle Alexander, she showed how she's a lawyer. She's a lawyer from Ohio State, graduated. So it says Michelle Alexander showed how colorblind drug laws, especially marijuana enforcement, created a racial caste system. Now look at her conclusion. Might be a little different than somebody else's, but black and white people are cannabis. I'm sorry, black and white people use cannabis at similar rates, family. We don't smoke more marijuana than white folks. They don't smoke more than us. Okay. But black people were arrested 3 to 4 times more often for possession. And that's like nationwide. Okay. But anyway, that gap comes from where and how police patrol, Supreme Court approved pretext stop, and federal grant incentives that reward drug arrest numbers. Even without long sentences, a marijuana conviction can lock you out of jobs, housing, and voting. What Alexander calls the new Jim Crow, legalizing the expungement of health, but until policing metrics, incentives, and discretion change, the racial skew of who gets stopped, searched, and marketed, a felon will continue. Okay, so that's pretty much everything tonight. Yeah, so family, that's it for tonight. That's all. I apologize for coming on some late, but trust me, I'm tired as crap. I didn't want to come late, but I couldn't come no earlier. That's just what it was. You feel me? So hopefully people watch it again. Hopefully people who ain't see it tonight see it tomorrow. Maybe I'll replay it tomorrow morning. Maybe I'll do that. Replay it tomorrow morning. You dig? So we can watch it. Very good information. That's it. Can we play a closeout song, family? Yeah, it's 120. That's crazy, 125. Closeout song, and we are out. You dig? Wait a minute. My life have been changed for yours. FBA. Another super chat in the building. We have like 25 altogether. I appreciate you, bro. He says that we need to be talking about what the tether doing to New York. Yeah, no. Trust me, man. Like a lot of times stuff be there, and the chat be sending me so many links on these things. They're just getting around to it. 'Cause I got so many other links people sent me that I got, I've got to put it in circulation. But yeah, we're gonna talk about the hijacking of New York City. Feathers. Okay. Thanks for the super chat again. Hopefully you guys go back and watch this and catch it from the beginning.
Y'all like the way we go, right there, right there. Never disrespect the lineage. I swear we can really be a worst nightmare. Say our name, say our name, say our name, and we're right there, 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 right there. Y'all like the way we glow, right there, right there. Never disrespect the lineage. I swear we can really be a worst nightmare. Say our name, say our name, say our name, and we're right there. Right there, 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 right there. Y'all like the way we go, right there, right there. Never disrespect the lineage. I swear we can really be a worst nightmare. Say our name, say our name, say our name, and we're right there, 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 right there. Y'all like the way we glow, right there, never disrespect the lineage, I swear. We can really be a worst nightmare. Say your name, say your name, say your name, we're right there, right there, right there. Y'all like the way we glow, right there. Never disrespect the lineage, I swear. We can really be a worst nightmare. Say your name, say your name, say your name, we're right there, right there, right there. Y'all like the way we glow, right there. Never disrespect the lineage, I swear. We can really be a worst nightmare. Say your name, say your name, say your name, we're right there, right there, right there.
All right, family, good night. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace. Peace to the lineage. Peace, peace, peace. I appreciate you guys. Maybe, yeah, we'll see. I got some stuff tomorrow. You did. Good night, the grand.